Hey guys, welcome back to HotS Thoughts. Today I'm going to be doing number 6, and I'm going to be continuing some of my thoughts on soaking experience. After I got done doing the last episode, I was thinking, there's still a lot more to talk about in terms of soaking experience and knowing specifically when to push versus when you should be soaking. So I wanted to go into a little bit more detail about that. But first, there are two orders of business that I want to talk about. First of all, we have officially launched our Twitter page for the Heroes Writing Team. This is at Liquid Heroes. And our goal with this is to be tweeting all of our articles, as well as retweeting other news sources and Justin Browder tweets, things of that nature, so that we can really cement our place as a news source for Liquid's Heroes. In fact, the best news source on the web. That's our goal. So if you want to follow us at Liquid Heroes, we will be keeping up with things. There's a lot of changes coming down the line with the Heroes Writers at the moment. We're also working on a podcast that will be released later on this month. We're all pretty good players in the Heroes Writing Team. We're all like top 10 in terms of rank. So we wanted to get together and talk about some changes, some things that we see in the game together as a group, and we think that'll be a pretty good show. So just look out for that. There'll be an official announcement in a couple weeks. For right now, just know that that's on the way at some point. Our goal is by the end of this year, probably, to really cement our place as the #1 news source. So we're looking forward to that quite a bit. What's up with us? Second order of business. Actually, that was pretty much it. That's it. That's as far as news. So getting back to soaking experience. So the things I wanted to talk about were, last time I mentioned different times that you want to soak experience, but I didn't really go into depth. I just said you just need to soak during this time, and here are some ways to do it. But I really want to hammer in, when is it that you should be soaking and when is it that you should not be soaking? Because a lot of people run into that problem where either you have people who just want to attack all the time and they end up losing out on a lot of experience where they shouldn't. And then on the opposite camp, you have people who become like what I call soaking purists, who will spend way too much time soaking and not enough time actually doing things and playing too safely. So really what it comes down to is knowing where your advantages are and when you can use those advantages to make something out of it. This also goes alongside our newest article, the Playing From Behind. Just released this yesterday, I believe, or the day before. Playing From Behind, this was written by Phantom. Basically, it just goes over what you need to do when you're behind and how to catch up. So one of the things that I want to talk about is specifically soaking as it relates to talents. As far as soaking goes, the big thing is trying to make sure that you're always a talent or a power spike ahead of your opponent, right? So the biggest power spike in the game is at level 10. That's when we see all the heroics come into play, and pretty much across the board, if you try to attempt a fight at level 9 versus level 10, you're going to lose. It's very rare that you have a level 9 versus level 10 fight and the level 9 team wins, just because heroics are that powerful. So for that reason, we see a lot of times that up to level 10, you'll spend a lot of time soaking, right? That's very important because you want to get to that power spike as soon as possible. Because you can also turn that advantage into a huge snowball advantage. You can get an advantage at level 10, and then move forward and get a talent advantage at level 13, and then at 16, and then at 20, and just kind of keep rolling over those advantages. So level 10 is very important for a lot of reasons. But you definitely don't want to over soak to the point where you're giving up a lot of objectives, because if you give up too many objectives, then the other team catches up. So it's this battle of trying to figure out how much you can push versus how much you can soak. And I think that's the battle before level 10 for that sort of thing is a little bit more difficult than some of the later levels. But when you need to soak early on, for the most part, you're going to try to do it as much as possible, right? So that's the first thing I want to talk about. Second thing is basically anytime you're behind, you need to soak as much as possible, especially when you're a talent behind. And this means even if you have to give up objectives, the thing that you want to be careful of is soaking too much, because you always want to be looking for opportunities. The opportunities to force a team fight or a 5v5 team fight or try to take an objective by force are always there. You just have to look for them. So the biggest thing that you're looking for is talent tiers, right? So whether you're behind or ahead, you need to always be looking at talent tiers. If you reach level 10 first, or you reach level 13 or 16 or 20 first, you want to be the team that's initiating fights, that's kind of just running over different objectives and things like that. You want to be forcing the other team to fight when they're weaker. This isn't always, that's not to say that like as soon as you reach one of these levels you should be automatically pushing down a fort and going all in on it. Of course not. But if you have half a level lead, that gives you a certain amount of time, let's say like a minute. You have about a minute where you can make something happen where the other team can't really contest it very easily. And that's generally true across the board. The other thing that you're looking for is anytime that you have a map objective, anytime you've secured a map objective, you are starting to increase your lead. And that's particularly true when you have things like a larger skull golem on Haunted Mines. If you have a Punisher, if you have a Garden Terror or the Dragon Knight, all of those things count as advantages for your team, and you should be looking to be aggressive with those. You should never get Dragon Knight and then everyone just split up and totally ignore any kind of pushing power. There is opportunity there to do damage. Now, I know if we think back to like my Infernal Shrines podcast, I talked a lot about how it was very common for the first Punisher to kind of be baited over the wall and not do much. So it was important for everyone to go soak. And that's true to some degree, but you should also be wary of opportunities. Like if the other team is trying to fight you in front of their gates while you have a Punisher, don't just immediately back and go soak. Just fight the other team because you're going to win while the Punisher is standing out there in front of the gates. And if they don't bait it over the wall, it's going to do a lot more damage than it would otherwise. So it's a balancing act, of course, where you have to figure out, is me staying here and pushing beneficial to our team, or is going ahead and splitting up and soaking better? And there's always that fine line that you have to decide between, but making sure that you look for opportunities is important. Another one is, of course, the boss. The boss is a lot like the Punisher or the Grave Golem or anything like that. You can push with it. Either push with it or push across the map and split push. And both of those things are valid because the opponent has to send some kind of resources to deal with it. And you have the advantage at that point. Objectives that are less impactful are things like mercenary camps. Mercenary camps are like the boss. The opponent has to dedicate a certain amount of resources in order to clear that. But it's not so bad that you automatically win a 5v5 fight if they try to fight underneath it, right? So you want to kind of gauge properly where you're putting pressure on the map with the mercs and pay attention to how that allows you to push. Because, for instance, we see a lot of specialized mercenary timings on maps like Sky Temple or Haunted Mines. If you think about Sky Temple, a very common thing to do is for the second temple, people will take the night camp in the top lane so that either the opponent has to send significant resources up there to deal with the night camp during the second temple and thus loses the setup on the temple, or they have to just totally give up their towers on top because the knights will kill it and just deal with the temple down bottom. So it's kind of one of those things where you can create multiple points of pressure. If you take those knights and the other team decides to take the tower, you also have the opportunity to just push into their fort and trade forts, the top fort for the bottom fort. Those are all choices that you can make based on the pressure and advantages that you get in different places, right? Another big thing is just, well, I say a smaller thing that determines whether or not you should attack versus when you should soak and back off and play passively, is whether or not you get hero kills and whether or not heroics are down. So this is one of those finer points that requires you to really use good judgment. But say, for instance, you are kind of skirmishing in a lane and you happen to kill the other team's hero. Let's say like their healer. And the healer is down for 15 seconds. During that 15-second window, you can push because the other team does not have a healer. They cannot take a team fight and hope to win. So, and on top of that, it's also going to be a 4v5 fight. So you have an opportunity there. It's more impactful when you kill something like a healer or something like their big damage dealer. It's less impactful if you kill like one member like a tank or something. They can still defend 4v5 if you try to push down a fort, if you just kill like a tank or something like that. But if you kill a healer, it's a lot more difficult for them. So those are things to keep in mind. Also, heroics are important. If you, say for instance, someone on your team gets caught up out of position and the other team uses 3 heroics to try to kill them, but that person gets away, you can immediately push. That is an opportunity to immediately push because your team will still have all of your heroics and the other team will be down, 2 or 3 heroics, and that's kind of a huge deal. That doesn't happen often, but that is something you need to keep track of, especially when you have longer cooldowns that are very, very important. Things like tranquility, things like void prison, stuff like that. That are team fight changing. Sanctification's a good one. And that can also go the other way. Like if you catch someone out of position, like a Malfurion, and they're forced to pop tranquility, then you know that you can win a team fight after that because the other team won't have tranquility in their fights, and that's a lot of healing that they've lost. So based on these criteria, you can kind of think about when you have an advantage versus when you don't, and think, should I be pushing right now or should I not? A lot of times people, there's also kind of this push and pull against objectives versus just killing forts, just walking in and killing forts. You'll see this especially on things like Garden of Terror and Battlefield of Eternity, where skilled teams will win a team fight and then they'll just immediately push down and kill a fort and then come back and get seeds or get the immortal later. Lower level teams don't really think of it so much in terms of this. They think more in terms of, oh, okay, we just won a team fight, let's get the objective. And sometimes that's not necessarily the better thing to do. If you win a team fight, if you get like a team wipe, or even just kill 2 to 3 heroes on the other team, you have a specific window of opportunity where you can do damage that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do if you just did the objectives. So it's important to gauge how much time you have in between these gaps where you kill other heroes and you get an advantage, and how much time you have left to push versus doing the objective. There are certain times when it's not really safe to push. Say you're on Cursed Hollow and you're fighting over the first or second tribute, and you kill 2 members of their team and they're on like an 5 to 8 second respawn timer. Suddenly they're back again and you can't do anything with that. Of course, that's going to change soon with the PTR, but I won't go into that. It's going to be very difficult for you to actually get anything done in those like 5 to 10 seconds that it takes for them to get back do the tribute, right? You don't want to push during those times. You just want to go ahead and say, okay, we got the tribute, go back to soaking, right? That's obviously the best thing to do there. But later in the game, when respawn timers are up to 30 seconds plus, you can start really making educated decisions like, okay, we killed them, and specifically their healer is down, so we can go ahead and push this fort immediately, and then we'll go back and get the seeds, and we'll still have time to do both of those things before anybody can stop us. And even then, even if you don't have time to do that, sometimes it can be better to just go ahead and push the fort and then get half of the seeds and then go home when they get there. That's okay, because you've still stolen some seeds from them that they could have potentially gotten, and you've also gotten a fort through that. So you've further increased your experience lead. It's better to get a fort and some seeds than just some more seeds that may potentially get you ahead later. Better to get ahead now than to potentially get ahead later, if that makes sense. Trying to think of another really good map where that's obvious. Infernal Shrines, I feel like there should always be a hero on the shrine, even if you win a team fight. Unless you have like a really decisive team fight that you can push down a keep with. But for the most part, it's generally best to leave one person there to go ahead and just continue clearing while the rest of the team pushes. That's also kind of the case on Sky Temple in some cases, where if you get ahead by a marginal lead, you kill like 1 or 2 heroes, or you win a team fight fairly easily, then you can go ahead and push while leaving one person on the tower, and that will end up doing more damage overall than having the entire team push and neglecting that tower. And it also gets you into the next phase a little bit quicker, so your opponent has less time to catch up and soak and kind of equalize that lead. So all of these things are good. The main thing that I want to point out is just looking for opportunities to push. A lot of people have this issue where they want to soak, they're not sure when to push, they're not sure when they have the advantage. You just need to be looking for points when you have the advantage and just start pushing and trying to get your team to do the same. If you do this, especially in lower to mid leagues, you get better at gauging when you can push. It drastically improves your win rate. I am absolutely a true believer in it. If you learn to make this decision making, all right, we have an advantage, go now, and be able to make that decision accurately and consistently, you can rise up in the ranks really quickly. I think it's a large part of what makes good players good. Looking at my notes, it seems like that's basically everything I want to talk about. I'll talk a little bit about merc camps. Merc camps are important. So when you're behind, merc camps are a really big deal for gaining back map control. Map control is something that you kind of lose. I won't go into it too much, but it's something you start to lose when you start losing team fights over and over again. And when you get down a tier, the best thing that you can do for yourself is start taking mercenary camps to help you equalize pressure in the lane and allow you a little bit more freedom in your movement. That's pretty much all I want to say there. Mercenary camps are very good defensively. Offensively, you can take merc camps to deny it from your opponent when you have an advantage, or to help you push. But I think, for the most part, they are ways to give you opportunities to push, or very good defensive tools to allow you to catch back up and experience. So that's basically it. Like I said, the main point is just looking for opportunities. That's what I really want to hammer in really hard. Just look for opportunities to push, and don't get yourself single track minded into this thought like, I have to soak, we have to keep getting ahead, or we have to get to the next tier level, etc., etc. Look for chances to just say, oh, you know what, we can abandon soaking right now. We can abandon the objective and just kill this fort because it's free. We can just do this and the other team can't stop us. Just start looking for those opportunities and start getting into a hunter-killer mentality that, oh, you know, I can just go in for the kill. I can go in for the threat right now. It's very important. So that's basically it for this episode. I hope you can join me later in my later episodes. If you have any thoughts, comments, concerns, ideas, post them down below. And remember to follow me at esports_John, and also our new Heroes Writers Twitter at Liquid Heroes. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Later.